Hello everyone of YouTube, Red October here in the first video in a series of conspiracy-based commentary documentary videos, and this very first video is going to be based on the highly controversial conspiracy theory of chemtrails. So already in what I've just said, conspiracy theory, that is such a taboo group of words. Those two words coming together, people tend to frown upon, people tend to think, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, therefore you must be insane. Obviously, off the bat, right there, that is wrong, and if you're interested in conspiracies like I am, then good on you. And I'm going to go into chemtrails here and what I've gathered about it, and you can make what you will of it. But there has been new information released very recently, within the end of 2014 into early 2015, that suggests that chemtrails may be more revealing, maybe more real than we had expected. I mean, I always had my doubts, but new evidence suggests that this could be something very, very real. So I've got a website up here, and scientific evidence suggests that some planes in the sky leave trails that persist and spread, and other planes in the same sky leave short-lived trails, or no trails at all, for that fact. These short trails are called contrails, or short for condensation trails. They are not smoke from engines. They are formed when the water in jet exhaust, and there is quite a lot of it, like the car exhaust on a cold day, mixes with the wet cold air and condenses and freezes into ice crystals. Contrails are actually a type of cirrus cloud. When the air is wet and cold enough, the trails can stay around for a long time and sometimes spread out. This difference between trails that fade away and trails that spread is often used as evidence of the chemtrail theory, which states that the longer lasting trails, or some of them, are being deliberately manipulated for some reason. And I'm going to say that this person has obviously taken this evidence and looked from an outward perspective. They're going to say that from what they organization's Big Brother wants you to hear, they want you to know that these clouds, that these contrails are just normal. Obviously they're going to want you to think that, aren't they, logically? But why isn't it plausible that they could mix chemicals with contrails? It's plausible. So off that bat you'd think, well, if this is possible, why aren't we looking into that? Why aren't we questioning this? And this is what this video is all going to be about. So yeah. So a bit further down in the website that I'm using, it talks about why do planes leave long trails but others don't. And it says that trails are actually, these trails that we see in the skies are called contrails, and I've already explained this, but condensation trails is the abbreviation. And they're not smoke from engines, they're formed when water in jet exhaust is dispelled. So, and then it starts to talk about altitudes. So what is altitude? It's like the difference in the regions of the air, isn't it? So as you go up, you get into a higher altitude, there's less air, and it's actually colder as you get up, because we know that the sun's energy is trapped within the atmosphere, and progressively that's going to become colder and colder. And this is where it comes on to the facts that condensation is affected by temperature relative to the altitude. So, okay, it's talking about simplicity. Let's refer to these regions, I do quote here, of air as wet air and dry air, although the differences are a bit more complex. When the plane is in wet air, it makes a contrail. In dry air, it does not. So that's quite interesting, in that regions of the air have dependencies. Okay, it goes on to say, surely you might object, they would have to be miles apart. Well, no, and that brings me to another point that I fear I must emphasize. Wet air and dry air can exist within a few feet of each other. Okay, so that's just stating facts, that's just stating science. And we know that science is not all that it comes to be, and the facts are there, but how can the facts be applied? I mean, you could get a Rubik's Cube, and you could complete the Rubik's Cube, you could fulfill its purpose, but alternatively you could use that Rubik's Cube and hide explosives inside it. What I'm saying here is that something simple and something that fulfills one purpose can be used for something else, and people seem to tend to forget that. You've got to remember that while this guy is stating science, governments could be stating something else through this. Obviously they want you to think that chemtrails, contrails, they're very different things. One is an insane conspiracy theory, the other is something more normal that doesn't threaten people. The government want you to think that they're the big daddy here, that they're here to protect you, but that isn't always the case, and history has proven time and time again that the government is not always there to protect the people. And that is another conspiracy for another day. But back to contrails. I'm just going to scroll down here, and okay, now it talks about you can't tell how high a plane is, and it says you certainly can't tell if one plane is at the same altitude as another. These planes fly at 30,000 to 40,000 feet. Let's see what the visual difference there is around these altitudes. So there's actually very little visual differences according to this. So I don't know if I'm going to trust this really. So yeah, the trails look quite similar in that sense, but we do know that science can be used maliciously. We know that chemistry is very subtle. We know these guys, well, Big Brother could be ahead of us by decades, and that is just the fact. Now don't get me wrong, I think science is a great thing, it's a great source, it helps to put religion into its place in some sense of the word. I think science though in this case is being used, it possibly is being used, and this is a conspiracy channel, let's remember, however ludicrous the remark I make, I'm trying to keep it plausible, I'm trying to keep it genuine. So, science, yeah, using science as a deception tactic, saying, well, people, let's start off with people and science. As a kid, you've been raised, you've been always learning science in your class, in, the handbooks, the books you bought at the library, all do that, science and chemistry. They go hand in hand, and they also go hand in hand with school and education. So, what have we been led to believe about science and vapor? Well, we always think vapor and condensation is quite a simple thing. That's true, but take a look at these statistics, and I'm going back to earlier in that you can mix stuff together with these contrails, and we already know that there are some gases, according to the statistics I've just put up, that there are, well, the typical carbon dioxides, with the smoke, the carbon, small amounts of unburned hydrocarbons, oxides of nitrogen, carbon monoxide, and small amounts of other things. And it has been proven that on a small scale, these elements are being released. So you've got aluminium, barium, calcium, magnesium, pH field, whatever that is, well, that's the field of pH, acidity. I can't pronounce these things, sorry. And they have a small trace of titanium. So, well, they have admitted to a degree of what is being released into the air and actually is poisoning. So we've established that, according to the website, this is poisoning to the air. And stuff like snow, what is actually released by the clouds in what is the water cycle, traces of what is been released from these planes is ending up in stuff like, the snow. And it's sort of being absorbed into the earth and soil. But then it goes on to say something which obviously contradicts everything. So, like, everyone is exposed to low levels of aluminium in their food, air, water, and soil. So, if we've been exposed to this from birth, how will we know what is good? What is the level? We don't, that is the answer. We've been conditioned most likely to think that there is a certain level, that there is something normal. So now, late last month, a new video was released concerning the chemtrails, and I'm just going to put a few clips of that on here, and it's more or less just a commentary about a guy who apparently interacted with a pilot who was being used in this whole chemtrail scandal thing. So a guy has given some information about it, and I don't know whether it's fake or not. It seems quite convincing in character, but I'll let you be the judge of that.
Indigo skyfold code as well. Zero information found on the internet for this operation. That is unique. I received a rather lengthy reply from the chemtrail pilot. Here is that text from his or her email. First of all, I would like to say I do not agree with my mission assignments, but what soldier ever truly does? Several of us have considered bucking the ranks and going AWOL from time to time. We are kept in the dark when it comes to getting honest answers about what we are really spraying. Should they discover that we or our families are actively inquiring about your so-called chemtrails term, then automatic and swift disciplinary action will be taken. HARP and radar are two other non-allowed research subjects. Unless our children are learning about these in base schools, we cannot educate ourselves or our children through any public tutoring system. I would not intentionally spray my children or family with toxic aerosols, but as you must know, 80% or better do not have any family or children. Indigo pilots are chosen from the top ranks within the Air Force, Navy, and Coast Guard. Most of the pilots are, quote, hardened to humanity, unquote, and could care less about killing off unwanted or leeching aspects of America and the world. I swear to you, the majority of the pilots are like machines. I call them tanker terminators. I should not be telling you this, but nearly one-third of all flights are being orchestrated from small unnamed islands, where newly constructed bases are being built, at a rate of 8 per year. On these extremely remote islands, there are HARP arrays of every possible design, with many arrays surrounding these islands, within the depths of the ocean itself. The Navy has developed sophisticated underwater construction technology that allows fully autonomous robot submersibles to travel great distances and even manufacture parts for these massive underwater arrays as they progress across the open seafloor. Every time that you see or hear about military exercises at sea, they are basically there to give support and resupply their army of underwater robotic minions. There is possibly one aquatic robot per plane, and will soon be double that. You will never be able to Google Earth search any of this, other than an occasional error in blurring some island bases or smudging images of underwater arrays. It is impossible to locate all these artifacts. They even paint fake clouds over some of our island installations to keep prying eyes away. I have been shown some of these images by civilian friends. That is the reason I know this. I completely understand your concern for human safety, but here is the kicker. We are shown videos in our training of catastrophic destruction to our homeland by very sophisticated weapons, then told that these will be the consequences if we don't fly. Our efforts in building a defensive atmospheric weapons shield are the only missions of its kind in the world. We are paid more than any other pilot for our service, other than Air Force One pilots, who make as much or more and are kept in a dark secret world for their own protection. They tell us that secrecy is our protection and not to listen to any public rhetoric. We all know about cyber program Flashpoint, or FP-03, as it is known within the veteran community. This program is a self-destruct sequence that can be remotely activated from any ground, water, underwater-based, or other air mobile unit. The signal is encrypted through 3 satellites and cannot be jammed or blocked. At any given moment, you could have only 15 seconds to make your peace with your God. They tell us that FP exists to keep planes from accidentally going down in heavily populated areas. They can remotely detonate our planes over safe zones, but in the back of your minds, our minds, we are pretty sure this is a fail-safe program to keep pilots from turning over assets to any public, private, or civilian authorities. Have you ever seen any member of the crew survive the few crashes that have occurred, Every plane that has gone down was completely destroyed for good reason, I'm sure. We risk our lives in more ways than one every single time we fly, especially night flights. They are ordering us to fly at lower and lower altitudes. We feel like massive dark force empire crop dusters, and know that one night Bubba or Billy Joe will fire their long rifles at us when we spray their moonshine-making operation or pass over an illegal Mary Jane crop. I know for a fact that some planes have been shot at and subsequently brought down by mostly Russian, Chinese, and Korean weaponry. But the media will never cover these events, as they are not allowed to report on our flights either. That must be true, for I have yet to see a detailed or in-length report of our missions on any public venue, other than conspiracy shows and anti-government websites. I risk everything for disclosing so much information, and you will find very few like me. Even my own flight crew would have me arrested and court-martialed if they knew of this dialogue. That is why I cannot email you directly. But from what your cousin tells me, you are also risking everything just to get this information out to your colleagues. I salute you, sir, for standing up to the establishment and Big Brother. I would love to go home tomorrow and not rack up one more single minute of flight time, except for a sweet little Piper Cub or a rat-tail barn racer. I miss those beautiful blue skies from my youth, and I am ashamed for hazing over that dream. Maybe more of my fellow pilots will read or hear about this and decide to come forward as well. I only know a small fraction of the larger picture, as they compartmentalize everything. Should I become aware of any new significant developments, I will email your cousin. And now this is the man I have contact with. He says he senses a wavering within the ranks and feels that a kind of mutiny is being boiled to the surface of this whole geoengineering global whitewashing, if you catch my drift. My cousin still has friends in high places too, so he is helping to protect the pilot. This came December 11. Last word from the pilot was, quote, all pilots on leave are required to report to their CO by December 15th for special training operations to qualify for Indigo Phase 2 flights, expected to be initiated by January 21. Those were his words, not the actual Air Force message. He wanted me to stress that. He believes that the focus of their flights will be moved to areas east of California and Texas in order to progress the drought further into the heartland. Plus, he feels that a very new, extremely toxic chemtrail mix is going to be sprayed using new technology that makes these special chemtrails completely invisible. Atmospheric shield of protection. He doesn't believe that either. So that's the end of the message from this chemtrail pilot. And I just, from my own experience, I've had a lot of contact with this guy for 6 months via the internet, and basically everything he's told me has turned out to be true, so I have no reason to doubt any of this. So, hope you can forward this. This also points out how difficult it is to fight this program, because the people inside the program are not subject to public opinion or public information sources. So we need to brainstorm and come up with a way to shut down this program, as it is actually heating the planet and killing everything with elevated UV and toxic metals. Thank you for listening.
Okay, that was a video from the HAARP report, and it's quite interesting, because if this is actually happening, that is quite a fascinating prospect. As for the underwater bases, all of that, the islands, I don't know about that, but when it comes down to it, there is something going on with chemtrails. Or, on the other front, we could just say, oh, there's more air traffic in the recent years, it's been building up, and there just happens to be more trails in the sky, more contrails, and people are maybe just mistaking that. But at the end of the day, with a conspiracy, it's questioning what we know and how we interpret it. So that's been the video for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and please do feel free to leave a comment. Okay, thanks for listening.